Hello. Today I wanted to do another update on the background radiation experiment that I'm running. And today will be all about software. So I got the Geiger counter calibrated at the Reed Research Reactor yesterday, so we're looking good there. But today I just kind of wanted to talk about a lot of the software that I've finished so far and go over the architecture. So first, we have the principal piece of software, AutoGeiger.py, which is held up as a daemon by a piece of software called Supervisor. It interfaces with the Geiger counter itself through a thread that uses the Raspberry Pi's GPIO to read data from a digital counter circuit that gets its pulse data from the Ludlum 177 through, and there's like a little bit of conditioning circuitry before it hits the actual counter. And then secondly, there's the alarm circuit, and the alarm output on the Ludlum 177 causes that to trigger. And it's an open collector circuit, so I just had to do a little bit of conditioning to make it work with the GPIO on the Raspberry Pi. And all of that is connected together via the data port on the Ludlum 177 on the back of it. Secondly, we have the sensor polling thread, and basically it takes data from the temperature and humidity sensors once a second and stores that in a sample buffer along with the counts and some other information. And then every 60 seconds, those 60 samples of data get stored in MongoDB. And every 1 second, I refresh the queue of the last data point in Redis, and also put it on a pub sub queue. That'll become relevant a little bit later. As for features that I have not yet implemented on that side, I want to do the Facebook posting feature from here and the graphing engine. But those things have not been done yet. They're still in progress. So now the other side that I've did a lot of work on yesterday is the API and data presentation layer. Oh yeah, by the way, all of the features with a little asterisk have not been implemented yet on the graph here, or on the paper. So, that's all this stuff. Anyway, so I got the API going. So far it's only going to show you the last data point that I got. It's not yet querying the MongoDB to get like n number of data points or whatever it's going to do. But I did at least get the latest data working, and I got the request router working for that API. So basically, user requests data from the API, it's returned to them. Another feature that needs to happen is I'm going to create a notification engine that might come out of a Redis queue and monitor it and then send emails or text messages based on various conditions. I'm not sure if that'll come out of the Redis queue or if that's just going to be another feature here that calls this library that I wrote. So we'll see. Anyway. So enough of that. I'm going to kind of show actually what some of these things look like. So first is the web page served off of the Raspberry Pi. And this is just like the main opening page. I plan to put graphs and a number of things on here once I get that working. But if you change the URL to /API, you get some documentation on how the API is supposed to work, and some example data and all these other things. But if you do the latest on the API, it'll give you the last data point that the system, if I spell it correctly. There we go. Here's the latest data point, and you can refresh this every second and get the most recent data. So that's kind of handy. You can use that for doing real-time measurements or callbacks on web pages. We might do some live graphing on the web page, we'll see. And then show you a little bit about the database structures. So this is the MongoDB. This is an example of a record collected earlier. And you can see here that you've got all the data points that show up on here, verbatim. Just these two data points aren't the same data point. So you've got the relative humidity, timestamp, and this is percent. Whether or not the slow and full count per minute averaging buffers are full. The temperature on the humidity sensor, The slow counts per minute, whether or not the Geiger counter is throwing an alarm, barometric pressure in pascals. This indicates that we've received data, or we've received a count per second from the Geiger counter in the last 22 seconds. If we have not, then this turns to false, indicating that there's probably an issue with the Geiger counter, or whether it's powered off, disconnected, or something else has happened. The last count per second we got, so there's only one here. The barometer's temperature in degrees Celsius. This one's actually more accurate than the humidity temp. So I'm probably going to use this value instead. And then there's the fast mode counts per minute, which is 45 counts per minute average in the last 4 seconds versus 22 here. So that brings me next to the Qs. So here I'm SSH'd into the Raspberry Pi that runs the whole thing, and I'm just using Redis CLI to monitor entries coming through. And you can see here that once every second I cache the data record. The cached record is the one you saw on the web page, and then it also puts a record on the pub sub queue. I might remove the pub sub queue later if I don't end up using it for notifications or something else relevant. So those are the main things that I've got going with the software right now. Next up, of course, is getting historical data from the API, like so the last N records or records between a certain time or date or whatever. And then I also got some testing functionality, so you can actually run test. It'll give you all the data, by the way, is returned in JSON format, so yeah, it's still live, it's working. Then you can also test connectivity to the Redis queue. So this will actually ping the Redis server and see if it's reachable. Oops. That's not working for some reason. Anyway, it was working yesterday. I'll have to figure out what's going on. But, yeah, this is the current state of the setup in the API. It's working quite nicely so far and making slow and steady progress. I missed my January 1st deadline to have all this done, but, you know, nothing ever really happens on the deadline that you want it to, especially when you're doing it all by yourself. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy, and yeah, more updates to come as, you know, major milestones are reached. Cheers.